This is Money Stories.
Brought to you by Amy and Ben from In Financial Services. All right, welcome back to another episode of Money Stories. I'm Ben Harris and this is
And I'm Janine.
Harris. And today we've got a pretty special guest.
Very exciting.
He is a buyer's agent. He's a business owner. He's a property developer. He's an ultra marathon runner.
Something like that, yeah.
Probably what he's most known for online is his $40 million property portfolio. So hello, Jack Henderson.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thank you
no
for
worries.
coming.
Flash new studio as well.
Yeah. So what we want to talk about today, Jack, is most people online would probably know where you started buying your first property at just 18 years of age.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd know where you are now. So having that big property portfolio.
Most people know where I am now, but not where I started. That's the thing. Everyone thinks that, it was easy for you.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we sort of want to talk about how you went from point A to point B and sort of understand, how that worked and put more information out around that, because it is possible for other people out there to do it if they
More than possible.
follow your footsteps and follow that pathway. So
But you've also done it in such a quick time frame.
Quick time frame, yeah.
Doesn't feel quick in my life, I can assure you.
So, I guess taking us back to the start, to that first property, what were sort of your plans around purchasing that first property and your mindset at the time? And what steps did you put in place after that property to build that portfolio so quickly?
Yeah, so it was a lot less calculated than what I am right now. You know, I got kicked out of school when I was 15. I got kicked out of 2 schools, and the last one, unfortunately, that was the last time I went to school. And I went into the workforce as a construction labourer for the company that my dad worked for. A lot of people think my dad owned the company. My dad did not own the company. He worked for it. And the reason I did that is because that was all I was able to do. I didn't have a license. I had no formal qualifications. I didn't even have a school certificate because I didn't finish year 10. So I did that, and you know, as a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid, other than Xbox games and shit, you've got nothing to spend your money on.
Yeah.
So like I saved a lot of money in a relatively short period of time, and it wasn't because I was like consciously saving my money. It was just like I was a labourer. I was earning really good money. I was making like $1,000, $1,200 clear a week as like a 15, 16-year-old kid. So by the time I turned 18, I had, 6 figures in the bank account and had nothing to spend it on. And my parents were like, well, you should go buy a house because that's the most expensive thing that you'll ever buy. So it wasn't go and build a big portfolio. Like my parents are not these investors that, had this huge influence on me. They just do what most parents, I would say, do and try and make a positive impact on their children's life. So go and buy a house. They influenced me to try and buy a place around where I lived, which was in Wilberforce, which is like 70 k's northwest of Sydney. But I found this guy on YouTube. His name was Chris Gray, and he's still around today. You'll still find podcasts and YouTube videos of him in them. And he was buying all of the property for himself and the portfolio that he built around the eastern suburbs of Sydney. I didn't even know where the eastern suburbs of Sydney was. So I started to do research and watch more videos and listen to more podcasts just like this. And I ended up buying my first property where Chris bought all of his properties, which was in the east of Sydney. And I bought a 2-bedroom apartment in Coogee, of which I still own.
Yeah.
And at that time, the same thing. I wasn't like, I bought a property now, let's go get property number 2 and 3 and 4. I was just like, I got a property, and as you do when you put money into something, generally you get more interested around it. And I started to do more research. And
what did you do with that property? Did you move into that, or did you?
No, it was an investment.
Yeah,
I actually did move into it for a period of time, many years after I purchased it. It was the first property I moved into when I moved out of home. But it was purchased as an investment, so it had tenants from day one.
Yeah.
But
Which is a good way to do it, isn't it? Especially when you're that age and you can still, I presume you're still living with your mum and dad.
Absolutely. And I bloody advocate for that.
Milk
and
them.
I was like,
Milk them as long as you can.
Live at home as long, even if you have to pay like a nominal amount of board per week or whatever it is. It's not getting any cheaper, than living at home. And lots of people like to say online, not everyone has the ability to do that, but I would say the vast majority of children have the ability to live at home as long as they want, right? It's not the minority.
This one did it.
Yeah.
There you go. Like it's a no-brainer. So I did that, and I lived at home until I was 21. And I actually moved to Newcastle for my girlfriend. That was my connection to Newcastle.
Yep.
And when I moved here, I moved into a share house. So I didn't go, get my own joint. I lived in a terrace in Cooks Hill, in a 4-bedroom terrace, and we rented one of the rooms. And to be honest, it was no more expensive than living at home because like it was $200 a week for rent, and that included bills, and I was still buying my own food anyway. So that was the start, essentially just buying one property, and then I got the bug.
Yeah, nice.
And now here we are.
Yeah. And then I guess from there, when did you sort of go into like going down the buyer's agent pathway and opening your own business?
Yeah, it was many years later. Like I bought my first property at 18, and I didn't start the business until I was 23 or 24. I was 23 when I got into the industry. I was firstly a contractor for another organisation in Sydney.
Yep.
And then I worked with those guys for 12 months and then started the business when I was 24. So sort of 5 years after I bought my first property is when I started the business, and I'm 29 now. So that was sort of 4 years ago.
Yeah, cool.
So if we go back to that first property, what made you then go, okay, I actually now want to buy that next property? What was the triggers?
So I just wanted to be rich. Like that's the reality. I was a young kid. I probably had a chip on my shoulder because I got kicked out of school. I let my parents down. Like, my mum, all she ever wanted was a son to be a doctor or something like that. Unfortunately, my brother was a construction worker and so was I. So I'm like, I could let mum down. And I sort of had a bit of a reputation around the area that I grew up, that I was like a naughty kid, and, parents didn't like their kids hanging out with me and all that jazz. So, it was probably just a bit of a chip on my shoulder to go like, hey, I want to try and make something of myself. And generally, in today's society, we respect people who are financially successful. So that's where it come from. I was like, okay, well, I've been following this guy Chris online. He's made a lot of money through property. If he can do it, I can do it. And like that's literally where it come from. So I kept going down the rabbit hole and started to go to seminars, and I started to pay for access to people. So I paid for access to Chris Gray through like a charity lunch that he did, and I went out and had lunch with him for a few hours. Then I used his buyer's agency service to come closer to him. I mean, looking back on it now, it's all those little things obviously, make something big, but like at the point in time, it was way less strategic than what it probably sounds like now. I was just living my life, and I started to do more and more stuff that was sort of went in the avenue of wealth creation and property, and little
so it was a little
compound.
bit of trial and error in relation to what properties that you would buy. And
Well, I just followed what Chris did.
Yeah, okay.
I literally just found, and I tell everyone to do the same thing. It's like not everyone's going to resonate with me and my message and my beliefs and all the rest of it, and that's totally fine. But go find the person that you do resonate with, someone who's a similar age, got similar outlook on life and all the rest of it, and like follow the clues of success, because like they leave clues. So I resonated with Chris because at the time he was like a guy in his late 30s, early 40s, lived on the harbour, had a boat, drove the Lambo, like had everything that I perceived I wanted.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, if it works for him, it's got to work for me. Little old Jack from Wilberforce.
How could it not?
Yeah. So he bought apartments in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. So I bought my first one by myself with sort of his guidance, with me messaging him on Facebook saying, hey, is it okay if the laundry is in the kitchen? And like just random stuff that I have no idea about. And then with the second one, I tried to do it again by myself. And I remember like my parents and I would drive into the city on the weekends and go to auctions, and we'd miss out. And I remember because I was a construction worker, I loved putting on a suit because I never got to wear a suit. I hate wearing suits now. But I used to like get in, my Taracash suit and go to an auction and get smoked by some family in the East. And I ended up using his buyer's agent service, and he bought me my second apartment in Maroubra. But I literally just followed the footsteps of someone else that had done it because I didn't know any better.
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
And then when did you determine that just buying properties in your personal name wasn't going to be able to keep generating the ability to keep going again?
Many years later. Like I bought my first 3 properties in my personal name. I didn't even know what a trust was.
Yeah.
And I was sort of 20. When did I buy? I bought my third one, which was in Bar Beach in 2017, 2018 or something like that, I think it was. And then I hit my borrowing capacity limit. And that was actually the nudge I needed to be like, all right, I can't really earn any more money. I was in mining then, so I was earning like nearly $200,000 a year. I was like, where else can I earn more money unless I go FIFA? And even FIFA, you don't really earn all that much more. So that was really the thing that then nudged me to go from being a PAYG employee to want to start my own business. So I spent 2 years in Newcastle, and then I was like, okay, I said to my partner when I moved up here, in 24 months time, I'm moving back to Sydney because I want to get into property full time. And literally 24 months to the day, I started up here on the October long weekend, and 2 years later, the October long weekend is when I finished up with Darracon, is who I worked for, and went back to Sydney and sort of got control of my own income through starting your own business. And it's only when I got into the industry full time did I learn about all these other things that I had no idea about. Yeah, so I just teach now what I wish I would have known when I first started, building my portfolio. So yeah, I wish I had a Jack.
Yeah. And I guess on that, one of the things with your story is you did have parents who did invest in property and it maybe didn't go as well for them.
Unfortunately, yeah. My mum and dad hate me sharing the stories. They're like, why do you always make us sound so bad?
Yeah, no, but it is good because like obviously you've got them that you look up to as your parents, and it maybe didn't go as well for them. So how did you sort of get the courage to actually want to pursue that path, knowing that people that it maybe didn't go as well for?
Because what I saw, I guess unconsciously, and I realize it now more than ever, is that my parents made all of their money through their owner-occupier home. They started with their first property, which was in Mount Druitt, essentially a suburb of Shalvey. And then they went from that property, bought it for 60 grand, whatever it was, sold it for 100 and something thousand, then went from that one onto their first house in Wilberforce, their second property, but first one in Wilberforce, bought that for 180 or whatever it was, sold it for 600, and then went from that one into another one, and then they ended up selling it for $2.5 million. So like they made a lot of money through their owner-occupier property. So I knew you could make money in property, but they just didn't buy the right investment properties when they went down that route. They just took the advice from their accountant. Their accountant was just selling them some off the plan house and land package, dog shit that they were getting paid a huge commission on, and they didn't make money on that. So I was like, well, imagine if they just bought 2 owner-occupier properties instead of buying 1, or 3 instead of buying 1. They would be, 3 times as wealthy as what they are right now. So I knew it was possible, and yeah, I mean, I also didn't have an alternative solution either. It was like, I got kicked out of school. I was a construction worker. I was like, what else could I do? I was like, you can be a construction worker your whole life, or you can try and make something of yourself. So I didn't really think about the negative, repercussions of getting it wrong. I just thought, well, it's got to be better than doing nothing.
Yeah. And when you're doing it, it becomes quite scary as you keep progressing along the path. So how did you get through those moments where it's like, oh man, should I get there and like do this next step because I'm sort of putting my foot over the edge there?
Yeah, I mean, it's become a lot more scarier now because the numbers are a lot bigger. And I mean, it's still not scary, but like if I think back to when I was younger, I had no expenses. I had huge disposable income. My worst case scenario was I moved back home and cut out any discretionary spending that I had. And I was probably naive as well. I didn't understand what interest rates going up and down meant, and the global economic sort of outlook. I didn't understand any of that. Where now, I've got a big business that has a lot of people and a lot of cost, and plus I've got property, and plus I've got all this other shit going on. So like the monthly numbers are way scarier now than what they were. But you get used to it, right? It's like you're acclimatized to whatever your new normal is now. So same thing. I just have this outlook on life, which is like, if I do something, I have the potential to have a better life than I do right now, versus if I do nothing, I have a guarantee of having the same, if not a worse life than I do right now. So I'm like, I'd always like to make the bet for a slightly better life. Which means you do more stuff.
And there's a few different things, I guess, that you're doing now. I guess I'll go back a little bit, but you're going into like developing properties and adding granny flats and adding value by doing that. Was that something that Chris was also doing that you sort of followed, or did you sort of take your own branch?
Yeah, so he was doing renovations and value adds. All they purchased in their business and all he personally purchased was apartments in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, which are like very common. 2-bedroom apartments, small blocks of like 6 and 8 apartments. And they'd go through and renovate individual apartments, or they'd buy a full block of apartments and then they'd go and fully renovate it, maybe add 2 or 3 more apartments if they could. And he made a lot of money doing that. So I also had a construction background as well. I love that world. So it's it's just sort of all fallen into place. And my business partner in the building company was actually in my first job at AWJ Civil. He also started at the same time.
Yeah.
So like we've come full circle. He started at that company. I started at that company. We both went on different paths. He went and got his builder's license and worked for a tier 1 company in Sydney. And I went off and did what I did. And then we sort of reconnected a few years ago and said, let's do something together. So it's all come full circle. But I personally haven't really renovated or developed anything up until only recently. Like I didn't renovate any of the first properties that I had.
Yeah, okay.
I did like little stuff, but nothing major. And it's only recently that I've started to, do more developing and more value adds and, buy bigger sites.
Yeah. And even more recently, I've noticed you got into buying a farm or buying like property assets where you can also run a business off them or produce other income off them.
Again, it's all like I'm someone who likes to do things and then tell people how they could do it, right? As opposed to being the person who's never done it and then just talks about stuff they've never done.
Yeah.
I try things and then I go, does this work? Does this not work? You know, what were my learnings out of this? And then I share it with people. So as you start to build a bigger portfolio, all of my properties are in New South Wales. There's this beautiful thing called land tax and it becomes pretty significant.
Yep.
So, I was like, how can I continue to buy assets and not have to pay land tax? Because like my land tax bill now is multi-6 figures a year. And I'm like, this is outrageous. And you can go interstate and stuff like that, but you still face the same issues. Like you go interstate, you get a land tax threshold of whatever it is in each state, and then all of a sudden you're over that and you start paying huge amounts of land tax. And then I learned that farmland you don't pay land tax on. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And then as I started to go down the rabbit hole of farmland, I'm like, oh, well, farmland's been actually the best performing asset over the last 25 years in Australia. Performed better than all residential assets, commercial assets, the S&P 500, the ASX 200. So I'm like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I like the country. So it was like all together. And then how the wedding venue come about on that property is my partner. She used to have a events business, but she used to serve like children and kids parties. She do full service kids parties. Actually around here, just on the street over, a few streets over. And I was like, well, instead of charging a parent $1,000 for a kid's party, why don't we charge someone $50,000 for a wedding? I'm like, same work.
It is the same.
The unit economics are just way better. And that's how that come about. So,
no, it's cool. It's very, very interesting and a different way of.
But it's I guess when people look at it from the outside looking in, it's like a lot less strategic and planned than the reality. I just do I get to a point, and the reason the farmland come about is because I wanted to avoid land tax. So I just started to do more and more research around how that didn't have to be. I could have potentially bought a childcare centre. Whatever it was, I could, chose farmland, and now I'm doing it, and I'm like, wow, this is incredible. I've got the real estate asset. I don't pay land tax. There's tax advantages from being a primary producer, and I can run a wedding venue business off it, which cash flow is next level after you spend the millions of dollars to set it up, which is really cool. So now I'm like, that's the greatest. I'm just going to do more of this.
Yeah.
And do you still own the properties that you bought in the first place?
I've only ever sold one property, which was a building we owned in Paddington. I owned that with my old business partner. And as he exited the business, we sold that. But I've sold nothing else. So I still own everything.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I've just learnt from people who are way older than me. I've never heard someone ever say, oh, I'm so happy I sold that really good quality property. I've heard lots of people say, imagine if I never sold that property. So I'm like, well, why would I ever sell? If I buy really good assets, you would never sell it, because it's only going to become better and better over time. And I guess that's my perception on things is like, if I can buy an apartment 400 meters from the beach or a house in Bar Beach 200 meters from the beach, I'm like, why would I ever sell that? Because it's only ever going to get better and better.
Keep increasing.
As long as you can afford to hold them, that's the main thing.
I think the thing that is really unique about your business is the ability to be able to do those improvements for people. Because most people would be like, okay, well, I want to buy that property and I know that I could probably add some value, but actually how do I do it? And then having to go and organize everything, it's just all too hard. So
it's hard for us too. I've got an advisory board of people who are much smarter and wealthier than I am, and every single one of them are like, are you sure you want to go into the construction game? Like, there's not a lot of money in it for the business owner, and it's very hard. But also, because it's really hard to execute, it also gives us a bit of a moat. Like, to do what we do at the scale it's getting to is like a very, very hard thing. But that's also what people love. It's like they can come to us We buy the asset for them. We do their finance. We renovate assets. We then manage the assets on the back end. Like they literally do nothing. A lot of our clients never even see the properties, and all of a sudden they've bought, renovated, released equity, and they're buying their next one, and they've signed a few documents, generally through DocuSign now. They just click a button,
Which is a great way to do it because it takes a lot of the stress out of it as well. Now, with those like different pathways that you're going down that maybe you don't, or that you need to research because you haven't done them before, where do you usually turn to for your research? Is it just those other people in the industry that you...
Yeah, I mean, it's probably slightly different now. Like I can make phone calls and get introduced to people and, sort of get insights. But to be honest, I still do the majority of research through reading, and like I love podcasts and YouTube. Like I'm someone who learns much better through those sort of avenues. And then, when I've got enough information, then you just start talking to more and more people. And obviously everyone's got a slightly different perspective on things through their own life experiences, but you just get your, 10% from everyone and put that together, and that forms your 100% view. And then trial and error. Like you can listen and do all the theory in the world, but the way that you learn is by doing. And you're like, I know now that I won't do that again, or, that was really good that I did that, so I should do more of it. I think people get stuck in this like, what if this happens? What if that happens? And they never do anything. So I've done a lot of things that have been wrong and cost me a lot of money and been very stressed. But in those moments, like it's terrible. But post those moments, you're like, I learned so much from that, and I'll make sure that never happens again. And because I'm so young, I've got like hopefully a very long life ahead of me. So if I can learn lots and lots now, as I go through life, all these learnings will just compound, and hopefully with that, so do the dollars.
So what's something that you would tell your 18-year-old self?
What would I tell my 18-year-old self? I mean, there's all the strategy stuff, right? Like we just spoke about, like buy properties in the right structures, and make sure that you understand your serviceability is a finite, finite resource. But the main thing is live with this level of intensity and like do things really quickly, because the faster you make decisions, the faster you get whatever outcome that is, good or bad. And I think that's what I have lived like that, and I'm continuing to do more and more stuff really, really quickly, and a lot of the time before I'm ready for it. But that's how you're able to live a life where people go, oh wow, you've done that so quick, or like you haven't been doing what you've been doing for very long, and it's just because you make decisions really, really quickly that compound. So I think that's the most important thing. And you obviously need to live for something as well, right? Like I stand for what I believe in, and I don't really care what anyone else thinks about it. So, they're the main things. Like I think a lot of people, from my point of view, they don't prioritize the right things in life. Like having really strong financial foundations, I don't care what anyone says, makes life way easier. Like sure, it might not bring happiness, but it makes things way easier. So the sooner you can get that shit in order, I think everything else in life sort of becomes easier.
And thinking differently to people and acting quick sort of brings up a question about your flamingo.
Yes.
So do you want to, I guess, explain to us what
another
the flamingo
thing that
is?
just by chance happened? Like I was in Europe when I was 21, 22 years old, and we just bought this hat from this like stand on the side of the road that had all these flamingos on the brim of it. And every day I was blind drunk over there. And on to my 600 Instagram followers, I was like, oh, it's Flamingo Mondays. And I'll be on the piss. And the next day it's Flamingo Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays. Anyway, I come back to Australia and still working in mining. And I remember I did a video once and everyone was like, oh, when's Flamingo Sundays coming back? And I was like, oh, people like the flamingo. And then anyway, it sort of grew from there. And then I was like, oh, well, to be honest, a flamingo is like, it represents what I'm about, like, being different and standing out and all the rest of it. So then it became our company mascot, Henderson, the property flamingo. Literally, that's all there is to it. Like there's no like special sauce or some branding agency that come up with this crafty thing. It was just like, I was pissed in Europe. I brought it back to Australia and that was it.
As good as it gets.
Yeah.
Literally. Now it's in everything that we do. I think it's pretty cool. We got a mascot.
Yeah.
Comes out every now and then.
And like you said, it does represent the way you're doing things, like thinking differently to people. And
Yeah, and that's again, it's just by chance.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just like a flamingo. Wow. I mean, could I have made a pigeon work? Who knows? But yeah, it's a funny thing. You go to any of my offices and they're just full of. Every year I get and she's actually painting this year's one at the moment. Sam, who was our first ever staff member and he's now a shareholder in one of the businesses. His mum is an artist. So every year that I've been in business, so since 2021, 21, I think it was 21, she's painted a flamingo artwork for us. That's all of our offices. So we've got them all over our wall in Sydney. There's 3 big artworks as you walk in, and now she's painting another one now, which is our 2025 artwork in our Newcastle office, which is a bunch of flamingos running the Newcastle Marathon because we're the major sponsor. So, yeah.
That's good. That's good. Okay, and what about first-time buyers? What would you tell them? What would be your advice to them, someone going into the market?
Yeah, well, I literally just got off the phone to a childhood friend, Taylor, and that's what we're talking about. She's like, she wants to buy her first property. And I give the same advice to everyone. It's like, if you can, take advantage of the first home buyer incentives because like 5% deposit. Let's talk about New South Wales, 5% deposit, no lender's mortgage insurance, no stamp duty up to 800 grand. Hopefully they lift that, number, which is crazy. Like you need 40 grand, 30,
exactly.
Out of control. And most people can't even service up to 800,000 when they're first home buyers anyway. So they probably can service
and that
6 to 7.
can be a gift.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's her scenario.
Yeah.
She's fortunate enough to have parents that are happy to help. So, she can either go down the guarantor route where they just securitize it against their property, or they can gift her the cash. But it's not getting it's never getting easier.
Yeah.
And I was on a TV show a few months back, and I said the same thing. It's like if it was any easier than what it is right now, they'd be giving you the property because even though property has gotten more expensive, that is what it is. Any less than a 5% deposit is crazy, right? There still needs to be some level of accountability to be able to save that amount of money, right? And then it's like, oh yeah, everyone's got an excuse. It's like, oh well, we get the 5%, but what about the mortgage repayment? And it's like, fucking, you can't win, can you? It's like,
yeah.
So if you're a first time buyer, again, I would talk to 18-year-old Jack by saying, do everything as fast as you possibly can because of course, the world may end next year, but it also may not, and there's a higher chance that it won't. So you should do something now. Use the incentives as much as you possibly can, and from October 1, the new incentives come into place, which is obviously going to be beneficial. And something I learnt the other day, which I didn't know, is they also, and this may still be the case at the moment, I'm not aware, but if you haven't owned a property for 10 years in Australia, they also qualify. I was like, that is mind-blowing. So I feel like you've been through a divorce or, you've lived overseas or whatever it is, you can also qualify. So it's not just for young first home buyers. You could be someone in your mid-40s, 50s, whatever it is, who's owned a property before but hasn't for a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got a client just like that at the moment, haven't we?
Yeah, they still have to pay the stamp duty, but they do qualify for the
crazy. So I mean, what do you need? Like a 9%, 10% deposit, right? With your stamp duty and your deposit. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And then I guess on that, I know you said your strategy wasn't really as planned out as what it may seem online.
Yeah.
But for people wanting to sort of follow your footsteps and get into investing in property, what sort of strategy would you put in place for them to go from that first property to the second to the third?
Yeah, so planning is very important. I've been fortunate to be in a position where my income has grown every year since I got out of school. Not everyone can do that, and I understand that. So that's why planning is so important, because if you look at your borrowing capacity as a finite resource, if you want to buy lots of properties over a long period of time, then you need to protect that resource. So structuring is very important. I would say avoid the non-deductible owner-occupier debt at all costs, because most people spend 20 to 30 years of their life paying that down as aggressively as they can. And then when they get it to almost zero, they get this brilliant idea that they should go buy a bigger house because they've got no debt.
Yeah.
Don't do that. And you need to focus heavily when you're starting out in your journey. And when I say starting out, like the first 5 to 10 years, depending on how old you are, on acquiring assets and just allowing your capital base to grow. A lot of people want to focus on buying property and they're like, oh, well, I want the property to pay for itself and pay me as well, from property number one, but that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So there's stages of your investment journey. And when you are starting, you start with very little to no capital. Like if you're a 5% deposit first home buyer, that's your capital. So you need to grow that. And the way that you grow it is by investing in properties, allowing those to grow, and then using that equity to go buy more property. And every time you do that, you get more debt, you get more, I guess, negative cash flow. But over a long period of time, that grows, and your $50,000 that you might start with turns into $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, $10 million. And when you've got the capital base, that's when you can sort of transfer your assets from a capital appreciating sort of style of portfolio into something which is more cash flow producing. But too many people try to blend those two together, and that's when you get sort of subpar results in both. You don't get very good growth, and you don't get very good cash flow. So that's what I would tell people to focus on. It's like strategy is important. Work with someone or get educated around like how to actually build out a strategy for yourself. Get clear on what your goals are. They are likely to change. My goals are very different now than what they were sort of 10 years ago. And do it fast, aggressively.
So I suppose with the first home buyers, because you first of all said that get into the market, but then you also then said don't have owner occupied debt. So I suppose with the first home buyers, what you're saying there is you don't have to go get the biggest place out there. Just get a place that is going to fit with your budget. And so then that has the ability to then buy other properties outside of having that first home that you're living in.
For sure. Yeah. And I think I should clarify myself when I say that more. I say don't go and get owner occupied debt, and then people hear me say, oh yeah, but if you're a first home buyer, go and buy your first home. And it's like, you should buy your property as your first home, but you still want to look at it through the lens of I'm using these incentives because I know that it's for a bigger game. And if you buy a 3 or 4 bedroom house, you can, or even a 2 bedroom apartment, you can rent out other bedrooms. So it's still, an investment. But it's all about getting into the market with as little capital as you possibly can, and then from there allowing that to grow into, bigger and better things. And like, there's no denying that you need to also increase your income. Like, property's one part of the equation. That was probably the misunderstanding that I had early. I was like, oh, well, Chris Gray's just gotten really rich through property. And it's like, he's gotten rich through property because he had a business that allowed him to continue to buy property. Property alone is not just going to make you, really wealthy. I mean, it'll make you wealthy, but you need something to support the servicing and the cash flow.
Now, I might put you on the spot here a little bit.
I'm never on the spot.
But do you have a strategy for what you're doing over the next 10 years? Obviously, I know that's not something that other people should follow because you're in a very different spot.
I mean, all of the assets that I look at purchasing and purchase now are obviously a much larger price point. And I encourage everyone to go down the same route. Like, if you look at the wealthiest people in Australia, they're not buying $500,000 homes anymore. They're like, it takes the same amount of time to put together a $20 million transaction as it does a $500,000 transaction, right? So you want to be higher leverage on your time. But for us now, we're really excited and aggressively trying to acquire like farmland to run wedding venues out of. So we had one deal fall over that was on the table just due to some planning things that weren't right. And also like aggressively growing the business as well. So I'm very much now in more of an active investment sort of stage where I can buy the asset, ideally run a business from the asset as well, which then makes the asset way more valuable. And then, buying things like office buildings. So we bought our building in Newcastle. I'm buying one on the Central Coast, buying one in Brisbane. So then the businesses can operate out of there. So again, they're investments. And then some developing and all that jazz. But, I'm fortunate because I got a building company now, and obviously we can be builder developers and, make sites stack a little bit more than the average punter. But like, property development is really hard. Like, people think they could just be like these part-time developers, and it's just not true. Like, if you're a property developer, it is a full-time job. Like, you're constantly sourcing sites. You're going to look at 100 sites, 99 of them are not going to work, and even the one that may work, you'll probably miss out on anyway. So, I see a lot of people like, oh, I want to be a property developer. And it's like, it's so hard to make actual money. Like, you can get lucky and buy something and the market can move between when you buy and when you sell. But like, being a real developer, it takes a lot of skill. And I advise most people not to do it because you're not going to do well.
So when is retirement? When do you get to the point you go, okay?
Yeah, it's funny. I think retirement's a bit of a fallacy,
It is, isn't it? I agree.
I feel like I'm retired in the sense that I have full freedom and flexibility to get up and do whatever I want every day. Like, I think people who work in like a fixed job and they have to go to work every day want retirement. Really, what retirement means to them is the freedom to do what they want,
Yeah.
you know. And when you have that freedom, and I do, I don't really ever think about it, you know. Like I get inspired by guys like Warren Buffett, who's like 90 years old
exactly.
and still going to work every day. You know, it's not like it's not like he doesn't have to, or you know, definitely doesn't have to. You know, people like Frank Lowy and Harry Triggerboff, and like all these guys who are like decabillionaires, and like every day they're in the office. You know, it's like it's because they love what they do, and it gives them drive and passion. And I've also seen lots of people get to old age and retire and then die. I'm like, I don't want that. But in saying that, Frank, who was our head of investment, just retired. He was 51. He was in that corporate world forever, and you know, he put himself in a position where he retired, and now he thinks he's going to travel forever. And I'm like, go him. But then we got Dennis, who works for us. Dennis is a really wealthy guy, 73 years old. I met him through a business group that I'm in. He sold his business, and he was just looking for something to do because he was bored. And now he works with us. He's 73. Like young as 73-year-old. It's incredible. And I actually asked him, I did a podcast with him the other day, and I was like, you know, what about retirement? He's like, nah, it's a made up thing. You know?
Not for me.
Do you think Frank will come back?
I don't know. He definitely won't come back to us. Who knows? He's probably one of the best people I've ever met at being like super lazy. He enjoys laziness. Like he can get up at 9, just cruise, have lunch breakfast, I should say, at 12. I can't do that. So he's good at that. So maybe he can just enjoy 30 years of doing nothing.
Yeah. Well, the travel will be good.
You can only travel so much though, right? Like once a year's enough for me. I went away to Europe, you know, when was it? July, August, 3 weeks. I was like pulling my hair out. I'm like, this is boring. You can only go to lunch and dinner so many times, right? And look at the water. It's like, fuck. So yeah, when you can do all the stuff that you want to do, like you need to find meaning. Like you tick all these boxes and all these goals, and when you do it quickly, like I've fortunately been able to do, it's like you realize that it's like, oh fuck, that wasn't that fun. You know, you buy the cars and the toys and all the rest of it, and you're like, oh, okay, so what else is there in life? You know, where a lot of people, I guess, they spend their whole life chasing that goal, which gives them the drive. But when you achieve it, and that's why you see these guys who, you know, sell companies for huge amounts of money, and I'm exposed to a lot of these people, they sell their company and they do a year of travel and they buy the house and they get all the stuff that they wanted, and then within 12 months they're like, what's now? What next?
What do I do
you
now?
know,
Exactly.
like
back into it.
Literally, I got a mate who sold his company for 180 million a few years ago, and literally 12 months later, he was like starting a new company again. Yeah, I was like, it's not because he needs the money. It's like, what else do you do with all your time?
Yeah.
So anyway, fascinating.
Oh, cool. Well, I think that's pretty much answered all our questions, and it's a great story. So thank you for sharing with us, Jack.
My absolute pleasure.
Thank you for.
This is Money Stories.
Brought to you by Amy and Ben from In Financial Services.